Another, they say it's your birthday special. Dave and I in our matching gilets.
There we go.
Here, but infinitely more fashionably.
Yes.
Karl Trosclair is wearing not an original Vivienne Westwood, but a Vivienne Westwood copy, I think. But it's extraordinarily impressive.
With a chaos armband.
A chaos armband, of course. That's very good work.
Do Vivienne Westwood, I'm not trying to get you into trouble at all, but do Vivienne Westwood's lawyers pursue people selling knockoffs? Or do they
I don't think they do. She licensed her work to Boy at one time. So later on, after Sedition was closed, Boy were issued the license. They continued to make them all the way through the 1980s, I believe. Really? But now you've got some really, and these are fantastic copies. They've got the original sex labels in them.
Oh, really?
You'd be hard pushed to tell that whether it was an original.
So
or not.
where do you buy a thing like that? Go on, go on.
Online, where everyone else buys everything now, don't you? You just go on eBay.
Right? Okay, so it is like that.
But I mean, it would make sense if she was to get upset about it, because I mean, there are only a few originals, and those are thousands and thousands of fans. In fact, I think that some of them have just been put in the new British pop culture exhibition, haven't they, in the Manchester University as of this weekend, you know.
Yeah.
So nobody could possibly afford them anyway, and they wouldn't be available. So it makes sense to keep the old flag flying.
Yeah, I'll tell you who has got a massive or a huge collection is 3D for Massive Attack. He was a big collector. He's got like 20 originals of this shirt, and parachute shirts and everything. He was a big collector, and they were collectable very early on because punks wore them to death.
That would be worth it. I'm sure he doesn't wear them. I mean, that would devalue them enormously.
Occasionally, he does swaps for things, and he always gives away his worst copy that he has. I mean, record collectors do it as well, don't they?
Oh, right, yeah.
So has he got a kind of trophy room? Massive Attack.
Yes.
Kind of, so it's like footballers have. You know, they all have rooms that they take round people and say, that's a shirt that I wore. So you're saying that 3D from Massive Attack does the same thing?
I believe so.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, I do.
Well, if you got 20, the only thing to do is display them, isn't it, really? You're not going to put them in a drawer.
I had some originals. I had the Anarchist Punk Gang muslin shirt, which was the last of the muslins that I had, that I did actually put in the frame eventually, because that was what I could never have worn it out. That was like far too valuable. So that was in the frame. I swapped it for a load of records, actually, eventually.
Right.
For my brother's record collection. I swapped it for my brother's. I've got to tell you, I'm an identical twin. So if I reference we at any time, I'm talking about because it's me and him. So I swapped that shirt for his record collection.
So look, the traditional first question, talking of your twins, is what record player did you both have in the house when you were kids? Can you remember?
I was born in 1962, so I grew up in the 60s. So that was the standard piece of furniture, basically, radiogram, you know.
Right.
You know, maybe Pine, low level, not quite the monolith that my grandparents had. My grandparents had a 50s version, which was like the thing off Who's Next parked in your front room, you know, in the corner of the room, right? This monolithic type thing. So we had a bit of low level one, but my parents weren't really music fans at all. I think we only had 3 records that I can remember. We must have had a copy of Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits, because the first thing I ever remember is Rainy Day Women.
Right.
I didn't understand it, obviously, you know, the lyrics, you know, everybody must get stoned. What on earth is this guy talking about? We had that. I think we had
your parents' wild parties were going on in the background.
Well, my parents grew up in austerity, so I think they saw records as being frivolous. That's something that I think my mum's opinion would have been, hey, I listen to it on the radio all day for free. Why would I buy it? Why would I?
Absolutely. If I'm going to buy something, I'll get the greatest hits.
Yes. So, and we also had the soundtrack for Paint Your Wagon. That was it entirely.
Has Paint Your Wagon, is that the one with Lee Marvin singing Wandering Star?
Wandering Star, and I talk to the trees, but they don't listen to me.
Is that does Lee Marvin
sing? Clint Eastwood sings that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Because Wandering Star was a #1 record.
Yes, and one of my first ever memories, I'll come to this in a minute, but that's 1970. That wasn't it? Yeah. So that's one of my first musical, even though we didn't have music in the house, I was probably hearing things on the radio. So I remember What a Wonderful World, Louis Armstrong, which is 68.
Yeah.
And the first thing I really remember is in the year 2525,
Zager and Evans,
which I've done some research, 1969, and that was #1 for 6 weeks. That encompassed both Woodstock and the moon landing.
Oh, really?
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Do you know, I wouldn't have guessed as late as that, 69. I would have guessed earlier. But
I thought it was 68. I always imagined. It's funny how you imagine things in your history that happened here. Well, I've done some research for this.
Right. You've checked your life story. That's always a good idea.
Done the research for this?
It's not how I remember it exactly. The events are there, but not at in the timeline. So I've managed to put it together in a bit of a timeline.
Right.
That's very impressive.
And I thought it was easy. I thought that was early. I thought it was 68, but it's not 69.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Far East.
Oh, right.
Great Yarmouth.
Okay.
You've done that gag before, haven't you?
Yes.
via though Cornwall and Louisiana. So I was born in Great Yarmouth, but we moved to Cornwall when I was about 10, which is when my record or my music collecting journey started, really.
Right.
And then subsequently we moved to southwest Louisiana, Cajun country.
Oh, really?
In 1974.
That must have been exciting.
What was that? Did somebody's work take you there, or what?
My Yarmouth was a boom town in the 60s and 70s for the oil and gas industry. They discovered oil offshore. So what happened was there was 5,000 Americans living in Yarmouth, over here, overpaid and overset. As you said, David. Yeah. And so there was a huge community, 5,000 Americans living here. And my mother met an American, a Cajun, who was a tugboat captain.
Oh, right.
So we ended up moving, but he adopted my brother and I.
Wow.
And we ended up moving to Louisiana in
1974-75.
Yeah.
So you're adopted by a Cajun. That's extraordinary.
Yes. And hence my last name, Trosclair, is a Cajun.
Yeah, I suppose so.
There's no 90% of all Trosclairs still live in southwest Louisiana, East Texas.
That's amazing.
As far as I know,
incredible story.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's only me, my brother, my ex-wife, and my daughter with the name Trosclair in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are your memories of being? How old were you? 10? Was it being in?
No, we were 12, I think, when I first went there. 13 when we moved there.
And where was the place again?
Franklin, Louisiana. It's about 100 miles west of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Brilliant. In between New Orleans and Houston.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of equidistant, really. Right. Brilliant.
Was that a big place?
Franklin, no, it's 10,000 people in the middle of a swamp.
It's obligatory, isn't it?
That was transpired. And in 1973, America was a radically different place.
Yes, it would have been. Yeah.
And what I always found with America is that if you move 25 miles outside of a city, you move back 50 years in time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You know, you go back and the urban areas are kind of hip. But you go to a rural area.
It's worlds away. So how did you get on with your British accent out there?
They loved it, obviously. There was still that hangover from the Beatles and that.
Right.
But we went there at one point. I think we stayed for 18 months and came back with American accents. So we're known as Yarmouth Yanks.
Right.
The whole tribe of people who adopted American accents.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people who never even went to America hung around with the Americans over here, started talking with American accents.
Well, 5,000 Americans is a lot, isn't it?
Huge.
In a place like Great Yarmouth.
Yes, Great Yarmouth. There was the population then was about 50,000, so 10%. You know,
yeah. But that's a perfect setup. Because back then, you know, America was absolutely besotted with Great Britain, and Great Britain was besotted with America.
My mother was
all we wanted to be. Yeah.
My mother, her dream throughout her entire life was to go and move to the United States because she grew up from that generation, you know, where that was the land of milk and honey, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, she loved it over there. She never ever came back. She never moved back here.
Right.
But we did. Subsequently I moved back, you know.
So let's talk about records. So you talked about your parents' records. What was the first stuff that you bought? Can you remember?
Again, I didn't remember this quite correctly. The first singles I ever remember getting were You're Surveying, Carly Simon, and Blockbuster.
Can we just stop for a second? You're Surveying by Carly Simon. It's a brilliant record.
Classic.
Still a brilliant record.
The intro, it's just the intro.
Everything about that record is an
incredible record. And I think my sister bought that for either a birthday or Christmas. But I remembered it being before my first purchase, but looking back, I don't think it was.
Right.
So it was that and Blockbuster by the Sweet.
Right. Also a good record.
Great record, brickies in makeup, I know.
Yeah,
and I was a Bowie fan, I'll go into that. But not a bad record, I don't think.
And hasn't Carly Simon managed to keep that whole mythology of that record going brilliantly? Don't you think? It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Once you planted the idea that this is about a real thing, it never goes away.
Yeah.
If you look at loads of cases of this, once you say it's about a real thing, there's a story that follows it for 40, 50 years.
It just inflates it and keeps it aloft forever.
It's just amazing. It's absolutely... Because it's extraordinary.
And when you hear the Mick Jagger backing vocal, you think that's so thrilling. You just think so much into it.
Yeah,
perfection. Yeah. So where did you buy records? What was the first record?
Okay, so the first album I bought personally was on my 10th birthday, so exactly 50 years ago, and we'd got some money for a birthday, and we said to our uncle, he was 10, 15 years older, bit of a hipster in the 60s. We want to buy a record. What should we buy? What do you think we should buy? He said, go to Ralph's Records, which was a second-hand record shop. They sold second-hand records in the front, second-hand pornography in the back. What more could a young guy...
You went in a boy, you came out a man.
So he said, go in there and buy Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Which we did. And... not my favourite record, not even my favourite Beatles record, but as an introduction to popular music.
So what year was that again?
1972. So it was only 5 years old at the time. But it seemed like it came from another.
Absolutely. It seemed like the world had changed massively.
I couldn't believe it. And I was probably aware of the Beatles, but in the mop top version.
Yeah.
And when I saw the cover of that, I was like, well, these aren't even the same people who I've seen in Hard Day's Night or whatever I'd seen. I wasn't really aware of them. I kind of knew. I'd been to a youth club and heard Lady Madonna. There's someone that had a single there, so I knew that. Was Rain the B-side of that?
No, that was Paperback Writer, I think, was the B-side. Wasn't it? Is that right? I think.
Well, I was aware of them, but as an introduction, that was brilliant.
Right.
And then shortly so this was Ralph's Records, other record shops. I mean, all the department stores had a record shop. So Jarrell's, Palmer's, the local one, Boots, W.H. Smith, John Menzies, everywhere. Yeah, plus second-hand shops, obviously, and a couple of specialist sort of shops, and electricians, Bowers and Bar, and electricians.
Bowers and Bar,
always,
So is that where you could buy a fridge? You could buy a fridge and
two-bar electric
Focus album or whatever,
and an uninterested guy in the back.
Yes.
But they used to have their Music Week sheets. Do you remember those? Where they'd list every single single that was being released.
Oh, right, yes. Was it a pull-out, wasn't it?
They'd stick it up on the wall, didn't they?
You pulled it out from the Music Week. Yeah, it came out every week, obviously, every week. And they had the chart on one side.
And the new releases on the other.
Probably, yeah. They used that to order.
You could go in there and say, I want this one.
Absolutely.
This was a bit later on. This was when I was into punk, when I was buying punk singles, but that's where I bought them from.
Right. So is that when you come back from Louisiana at that point? Or?
No, this was before we'd even gone.
Right.
I was 10. I was exactly 10, my 10th birthday. And I think also my sister possibly got me this album at the same time.
Relics, of course.
Which is still my favourite Pink Floyd record.
Right.
I love it. I absolutely love this record. That was on the Starline label, obviously.
Yes, it was.
69 pence.
One of EMI's many budget imprints.
Yes. So which is why my sister bought us that album. Because it was a cheap birthday present.
It seemed so generous at the time.
I think it's so brilliant. I think, you obviously know us, Pipe with the Gates of the Door, some stuff from Pipe, some from Obscured by Clouds, and some from All. I love it. I love that album.
How old were you when punk happened then?
Exactly the right age, 15.
Oh,
that was I was made for punk. That was like, Because previously...
What was the first group you ever saw? Can you remember?
Yeah, it was AC/DC, actually, at St Andrews Hall, Norwich. Yeah, 1976. And do you know what? From the wonder of the internet...
Right.
See this?
Brilliant.
That's the set list they did. They only did 7 songs. They did a version of Baby Please Don't Go as well to finish. But they were the loudest band I've ever seen, even now. I've never seen a band louder. They blew me away because as the first experience of rock visceral is the way I would describe it. And they were so loud. So
it's amazing how you don't have to remember anything anymore because you can just look up a date, can't you?
Exactly, which is
what bring it all back immediately.
Just extraordinary.
Because I knew it was 76. I didn't know the month. I'd kind of my first. Yeah. And then so can I just go back a bit?
Yeah,
so
go
what
on.
I really got into after I was 10, I had the Damascene moment with David Bowie on Top of the Pops. I know it's a cliche. I mean, everyone says that. But for me, that was the moment where everything changed, where all of a sudden I had something that, something I could invest in. I was really, really, wow.
Yeah.
So I bought Ziggy Stardust and then we went back and I got this.
Right.
Yes.
Can you see what it is, though?
You've obviously done. Have you made that?
It's a jigsaw.
It's a jigsaw.
Oh, is it really?
Who was your guest who was doing jigsaws?
Mark Billingham.
Yes, of course. Unfortunately, it took me 18 months to complete, and 2 pieces are missing. But it doesn't matter still. So
absolutely,
we'd have got this very soon after getting Ziggy Stardust, and then Space Oddity. And then Man Who Sold the World, you know? And then after that, I could follow his career as it progressed. So you had Driving Saturday.
That's so true. That's what people forget. Everybody did David Bowie backwards. It was Starman, then Hunky Dory, and then, as you say, Man Who Sold the World, then Space Oddity.
Space Odyssey,
Because RCA were putting out those 2 with black and white covers, didn't they?
Different covers,
they redid the covers.
Yes. And then obviously you had the world of David Bowie as well, didn't you?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Of course, the
Images, that album, which was a compilation. That was 2 records. That was the world of David Bowie, and another thing that was the Laughing Gnome and London Boys.
Did the world of David Bowie? Okay, humour me a second. So this is Decca. So there'll be no money spent on artwork, you can guarantee. The cover, I think, had a picture of him from kind of about the time of Space Odyssey.
No, Ziggy Stardust.
With huge kind of afro hair, wasn't it?
I thought Ziggy. There was a Ziggy cover on there. That was in kind of like this, kind of in a pose. They repackaged that as well,
Right.
I mean, they started trawling up very, very quickly, didn't they? They started digging out all.
Well, because David Bowie had a lot of skeletons in his closet.
He just wanted to be Anthony Newley, didn't he?
Yeah, he wanted to be anything that would make him a star.
Put out to embarrass him. But,
he'd been on every record company in Britain, and so when he made it, they all said, "We had him." Once, didn't we?
Let's get some more money back.
Why not?
I read the Paul Morley biography of him not too long ago, which was excellent. And he said, he would have tagged onto absolutely anything that was going to get a hit. He was that desperate, and by that time, he really was desperate. You know, he'd been at it.
He was a real. He was kind of like. I mean, he wasn't stage school, but he was a pro entertainer. He just wanted to be in show business. So if he got a part in Hair, he would have done it.
Yes,
of course he would. Why wouldn't you? For goodness sake. He'd done the mime thing.
He just couldn't imagine himself doing anything else in his life. That was what he was born to do. You know.
Yeah. So that was my glam period. I was a 10-year-old glam fan, and I liked Roxy, and I never trusted Gary Glitter. Rock and Roll Part 1 was a great record, but that was just so formulaic after that. And I always knew, look, this guy's in his 40s, so I never really bought into that.
Yeah.
So then subsequently, we went to America at 13, and I developed, we went there, I mean, in the middle of Southern rock, wasn't it? When,
So you were...
so Lynyrd Skynyrd, ZZ
Wet
Top
Willie.
was huge. Wet Willie, exactly. I was going to keep on smiling.
Was that what it was called? Yeah,
that was their big hit.
Grinder Switch,
which was
the
John Peel theme.
Yes.
So the Allman Brothers,
the Marshall Tucker Band,
which I love, can't you see? But another band who were massive over there were Foghat. Do you remember
Foghat? Well, Foghat was. They were British, weren't they?
Savoy Brown. They were at the Splinters.
They were. Yeah. And they were on the Bearsville label, the least likely act ever to be on the Bearsville label.
But they were huge in Southwest Louisiana. They could play stadium gigs. Whereas they couldn't get arrested. Here they were probably playing the Hope and Anchor.
Oh well, yeah.
Over there they were playing like a normal day.
Well, it was like Humble Pie. It was boogie bands. There was always
hold on.
Oh, you better the Pie.
Oh, okay.
You see Cargo Rock.
We love that.
It was a record that I really got into in America.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
If you're talking about audience interaction,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and they were third on the bill.
This is it.
Headline that show.
They were absolutely.
That's right.
And they, I mean, everyone references this. Was the guy at Spandau referenced this album, didn't he?
Gary Kemp.
I think they said that was an important record. So, but what I really got into when I was over there was
it's got that great version of Hallelujah, I Love Her So on it.
It has.
And Walk on Gilded
Rock and Roll Doctor.
Oh
yeah.
But this is the album that I really got into.
So, what is that? Rainbow Bridge, or is that? It's not Rainbow Bridge, is it?
Soundtrack recordings from the film Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
Live performances, but good live performances. You know, there's Monterey on there, Woodstock, Fillmore, Band of Gypsy, stuff like that. It's a good live album. It was a Joe Boyd film.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Yes. So I fell in love with Hendrix then. That was everything. But I also really got into this band at the time.
Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
West. Nantucket Sleigh Ride.
Yeah. Because it was the theme music for Weekend World.
It was.
Remember? Peter J. Peter J, who was Times editor. And
Jim Callahan's son-in-law.
Yeah.
So I knew that music, and I used to love it. I only used to watch that program to listen to it. I mean, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
When I went to America, someone had it on 8-track. Again, we can talk 8 tracks if you want.
God, brilliant.
So they had it, and when we went to America, that was the preferred format to listen to.
Oh, really?
And they were developed by Lear Jets. Did you know this?
No, go on.
Yeah, the guy who owned Lear Jets developed it as an
in-flight
car. In car. Right. So they also did a deal with Ford Motors and General Motors. So they got them basically put in every car in America, which is why it was the dominant format over there.
Right.
They loved it, didn't they? But the drawbacks, which were many.
It's just ridiculous.
Double tracking was the one as well, where in a quiet passage, you would hear what was on the adjacent track. So they were awful.
That's true. They were terrible. And then when they got tangled, as they inevitably did in the car, that was it. I mean, you couldn't repair them.
Absolutely.
But also, if you
could at least wind them back with a pen and glue them back together. But
if you had a car, you didn't have room in the car for more than 5 of them.
Well,
David,
hold on a minute. One of the last records I bought was the latest St. Vincent album, which is called Daddy's Home,
Right.
And with her record, she does a theme with every album. And this one was Down and Out in New York, 1970. So there's a load of influences like Joni Mitchell, Pink Floyd, who else does she ape on there? Steely Dan, all that thing. But because it's aiming for that hipster marker, she released it on this format.
Is that a real 8-track?
This is an 8-track cartridge. So they're not quite as big as I imagined them to be.
So I remember them being... Does that mean that people still manufacture players?
No, I don't believe they
do.
The hipster
has
got to have it. So but they're now retailing for £85.
So all you want to do really is put it on your wall anyway, don't you?
Yes, really, it's a piece
you
of
wouldn't
art.
want to play it. Exactly.
And it's a marketing. I mean, this album came out on 25 different formats. You wonder how rock stars make money now. This is how they make money, by 25 different formats.
That's incredible.
Different versions, coloured vinyl, whatever. Sets, whatever, So...
That's amazing. So punk rock, when did punk rock come into your life?
We moved, so we were over there maybe for about 2 years, and we moved back in the summer of 1976. So the perfect time for it to happen.
Right.
So I went to see AC/DC in 76, so I wasn't that early. We lived in the provinces. It's a little bit hard to kind of, back then that was hard to really, but yeah, so the Damascene moment was hearing this probably on John Peel. Let me see, I've got a copy of this. This isn't my original.
As Buzzcocks, okay.
What do I get?
Right.
Yeah. And then obviously seeing the Pistols on Top of the Pops, that was like, wow, that's, you know, it wasn't just the music, it was the way they looked, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah. It's always the way. It's always the way they look is the great truth about Wholly music. It's always 50% of the deal.
Yes. Would Elvis have been as popular?
On Top of the Pops? Yeah.
Would Elvis have been as popular if he hadn't looked?
No, he would have been Eddie Cochran. You know, it's the difference. You know.
So the Pistols to me just looked perfect. You know,
right.
Rotten at that time was almost God-like, Jesus-like, wasn't he? You know,
unbelievably charismatic.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, I just can't get it. You look at that footage now, and it's so extraordinary that he invented that whole new stagecraft. You know, a kind of negative thing of doing nothing. You know,
filmed by Mike Mansfield, weren't they? Those two promos, the promo for God Save the Queen and for Pretty Bacon, were filmed beautifully by him. You know, that made them look like incredible. So, that was the big thing, and that was the big, and like I say, I was the perfect age, 15.
So were you were living down in what, Devon, Cornwall? Did you say?
No, we moved back to Great Yarmouth.
Oh right, because you were there. Yeah. So did bands come through? What was Great Yarmouth's gig?
What was your big venue?
The venue was West Runton Pavilion, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, of course it was.
A venue so hard to get to.
Yes, I mean, I'm going to say.
I checked recently, even from Yarmouth, which is only 36 miles away, it will take you 2.5 hours to get there, even now. 36 miles.
Is that a bus that drops off absolutely everywhere?
No, it's a train to Norwich and then a bus from Norwich to West Runton. And it's in between Sheringham and Cromer.
Cromer, I was trying to remember. It's just south of Cromer, isn't it? I think.
In between Sheringham and Cromer, but it's so hard to get to, almost impossible.
And I drove past it not that long ago, and I was really excited because I'd written the words West Runton Pavilion millions of times.
So did I too, typed out in gig cards.
And I went past there, and I thought, my God, it's a caravan park.
Yes.
Certainly is nowadays. I don't know if it was. But...
Did you ever go? No, you never went there.
No.
Like no journalist ever did.
That's why they
always started the tours there, didn't they? Because they couldn't get anyone to review.
When one says pavilion, that conjures up images of like a Victorian genteel. Well, it wasn't. It was a corrugated asbestos Nissen hut. I think it'd been built. That was in the grounds of a pub called the Village Inn, which is still there, at the back. And I think that was built as a billet for US servicemen, because there were a load of US servicemen during the war. And I think the officers were billeted in the pub itself, and the GIs were in the back. Right. And it was a toilet. It was an absolute toilet. That was the worst venue I ever.
So who did you see
there? Yeah.
I saw the Bunnymen there, which is a story that I'll carry on a little bit later. Theatre of Hate, Elvis Costello.
Right.
Not very many, because, like I say, and until I got transport, that was very difficult to go to.
Yeah.
But the Pistols played there. The Pistols played there before their penultimate gig was at Cromer Pavilion, wasn't it? Links Pavilion.
Right.
Christmas Eve, 1977. I didn't go. My friends went. But previously to that, they'd played at Runton before Anarchy in the summer of 76. And there's a page devoted to West Runton now entirely, so you can do this. And so the Pistols turned up. They were supported by a band who did a cover version of Nantucket Slave Ride called Grendel that no one has ever
heard. Heaven.
So they turned up. The Pistols turned up, and the guy said the Bromley contingent walked out with them as they got on stage, and they said that was like aliens that landed from outer space.
Incredible.
Did the gig. They didn't think that much of them, but Malcolm McLaren blagged the lift back with them on the bus. The band were going on to a gig, he was staying in Cromer. So they were bullshitting on the bus. And as he got off, he was like, see you on top of the pops. And they were all like, you're joking, aren't you? You're rubbish. They were rubbish. They'll never get any back.
Yeah.
6 months later, they all kicked off, didn't they? Yeah.
But did you ever form a band yourself? Or your own?
Yes. In fact, my birthday present this year.
All right.
Lovely. What was the name of your band?
Oh, I was in lots. So that started off with Dead on Arrival. We were a schoolboy punk band. We only ever played one gig in a school disco.
Pictures.
That's great.
Very good.
You got photos of it. That's great.
Yeah, we played a school disco, one gig. That was it. Then I formed a band called Still in Lisbon. I think we wanted to be Young Marble Giants, but we were rubbish. We were really, really atrocious.
That's brilliant. The idea you like punk rock, and the Young Marble Giants were the most ambient thing available, weren't they?
This was post-punk. This was a punk band. This was
obviously, but that couldn't be more different.
And our biggest claim to fame was we supported 23 Skidoo. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. I've got a friend who's the drummer. Yeah.
Oh really? Yeah,
lovely guy.
Yeah, we supported them at some fest. We were absolutely rubbish. We didn't have a clue, but somehow we got on this gig. We were like 5th on the bill. I think they were headlining.
Right.
So that was that. Then I was in a band called The Normal Family, who were pretty good. We wanted to be the pop group or the birthday party, really.
Yeah.
But, yeah, never.
So
really.
I get the feeling that your kind of lodestar at the time was The Enemy, was it? You were just thinking, I just looked at the cover of The Enemy, I want to be that, whoever.
Absolutely. The thing is, I worshipped music journalists, though, as much as I worshipped the bands in a way, because that was so important. It's hard to overestimate.
So who were the people? Was this the Paul Morley era? Who were you?
Well, no. Well, I started off with this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay.
Nick Kent, Charles Shaw Murray, those kind of people. Lester Bangs.
Yeah.
So I started buying the NME probably 75, 76, just as Horses came out.
Right.
That was all over the NME, yeah? So that was kind of my introduction. And there was some brilliant writing there, you know. And Mark, I remember reading you when did you join? 78?
78, early 78.
Yeah, I remember reading you back in the day, and the lineage through the Paul Morley, Ian Penman era, right up to Stephen Wells, who was my favourite of all the NME journalists. I loved Stephen Wells, fantastic, you know. So I read it religiously from 75 to 85, and then I started going through peaks and troughs. I looked this up as well recently, and I think someone's mentioned this previously. The NME was only good when they were writing about guys with guitars, really, weren't they? You know, when they started saying there's always been a soul element to our thing, you know. Do you know what I mean? You know,
it wasn't quite. It never looked. Craftwork on the cover didn't quite have the impact.
And dance music just wasn't good for them, was it? They needed stories to hang on to, and I think they tried to be the face. They tried to turn into the face, even though the face had done something else. You know, one year they voted "The Poet 2" by Bobby Womack as album of the year. Yeah, in like 1984, 85. Well, the NME. Really?
The peak time of the NME was the most exciting story was being on the road with a rock band. Your favourite rock band is somebody on the road. That to me seems to be the most thrilling thing in the world.
Well, it was nothing to do with music at all. It was all to do with boys on the lam.
Just boys drinking beer.
Boys drinking beer. Somebody else is paying for it. That was the fantasy. You know?
So here's the story for you then. So we I just wanted to. Oh, here's the story. So we went to see Echo and the Bunnymen at West Runton Pavilion, and went backstage afterwards, like you could at the time, and got talking to Pete DeFreitas, and he said, "Oh, we're starting an American tour next week in Houston." So, blah blah. And me and my brother were then going back to America. Right. So we went to the gig. We went back to America. Oh, they're playing Houston. We got on a Greyhound bus, went to Houston, found the club they were playing. Turned up at the sound check, And they recognised us from the gig. Go, weren't you at West Runton a week ago?
Oh,
like, yeah. So there we are, and we ended up going on tour with them. We ended up like in the U-Haul band, roadying for them.
No.
Mostly because we had some weed, and Pete DeFreitas liked a little bit of the old stuff. So yeah, we ended up going Houston, Dallas, Austin, Atlanta. Then came back and toured with them in the UK as well whenever they were playing. So I've seen them probably 23 times.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
But this was at a time when Heaven
they
Up
were
Here
wonderful that time. They were really good.
And Heaven Up Here had just come out. And if they weren't
McCulloch, incredibly charismatic.
And they were all really nice guys. Peter Fraser was
lovely.
a lovely bloke. You obviously met him, yeah? You obviously met him, yeah? But as a group, they were lovely. Les Patterson, really nice people, you know. But it's just, we've been 19 years old. They weren't very much older. They might have only been 22, 23.
Yeah.
But at that time, that's the kind of thing you could do. Just go on the road with your favourite rock band. And they were my favourite band.
Yeah.
And if they weren't the biggest band, they were the hippest, weren't they, you know?
Yeah.
You know, that Liverpool scene.
Them versus really, Teardrop Explodes.
Yeah, I remember, I always feel tell me if I got this wrong. I would feel the peak of Echo and the Bunnymen fever. Didn't they do a show in Buxton or something? Well, is that right?
Bill Drummond organised it.
It was in Buxton. And was it filmed or something?
In the caves, yes. They
something like
that. Oh, yes.
They did the ones where they dressed up in military garb, didn't they?
Yeah, they played on a roof.
That was shone so hard. That was Buxton. That was like in a cave, wasn't it?
It was something like that. I just remember thinking, that's the peak.
That was because Bill Drummond was obsessed with ley lines, wasn't he? There was a ley line running through that. Yeah. So this is hold on, let me try and find this. Oh, that was another great record from the punk era.
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah, is that the first alternative?
The first album, brilliant.
Yeah.
That was where it really expanded. Punk really expanded there. There's a Frank Zappa cover, and
oh really?
It's really Why Don't You Do Me Right?
All right,
that's a brilliant album. But this was in the post-punk era.
All right, big in Japan, yes. Yeah.
So do you know this band at all?
Well, I saw Bill Drummond thing, isn't it?
Bill Drummond, which
Jane Casey
later.
Jane Casey, yeah.
Well,
I saw them at Eric's.
You are
playing
really?
I'm sticking to you because I'm made out of glue.
Yes.
Which is that a Velvet Underground song or something? Like
it is.
It's Nico sang
one,
isn't it?
Nico sang it with the Velvet Underground.
Yeah. Anyway.
So my theory is that this band are actually the most influential band of all time because
that's a good one.
Okay, this is good.
They had Bill Drummond, Dave Balfe,
right,
Holly Johnson, Budgie, Susie Sue's.
All right, of course.
And Jane Casey, who's now like Creamfield. She's like cultural.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So they all went on to have absolutely huge success.
Yes, really
they did.
And
they
really influential.
It's a really interesting. It's a really interesting story. Utterly unsuccessful group who then went off.
And everybody though. That's a.
It's the complete opposite of being greater than the sum of your parts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The sum of your parts.
That's the reverse. That's a good book, that is.
It is.
Isn't it?
That's a good idea for a book.
And I'm possibly the only person. No one bought this record at all. That's
absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
Even their closest relatives won't have
kind
it.
of great. Art rock. Who else was I into at the time? I was going to go through gigs, but no.
So what did you do for work? I mean, you did your roadying things. Did you go to college, or were you?
I'm a welder.
Oh, right. Okay.
Me and Bob. If I ever met Bob Dylan,
right, you'd get on.
Yes, I'd say you're running your arc a bit too hot there, Bob. You know, your amps. You need to turn your amps down a little bit.
Yeah.
And you won't get so much spatter. Yeah. You know. No, I was a welder in a previous life. What I do now is actually I run an anarcho art space in Great Yarmouth, and we among other things we do workshops for kids who have been excluded from schools.
Yeah.
We've got a venue downstairs, so we've got a gig on tomorrow night. Previously, I had all my papers here now, and they're all. Where is that? Oh, well, we've got this coming up.
All right. What's the name of the place?
Steve Ignorant. Wow.
Colossal Youth.
So this is a kind of 80s. This is a kind of 80s kind of revival, then, is it?
Yeah, the place is called Colossal Youth.
So right, okay. There, and this is in Great Yarmouth.
Great Yarmouth, yeah.
Right, okay.
So we've got a venue downstairs and an art space upstairs.
Right.
But I share the space. So the first gig we put on was a punk rock gigs, as free admission, benefit gigs. We did it for a soup kitchen. Was Salem Bitch Trials, who were all really young kids, like 19, 20. Their favourite bands are The Clash, The Damned, Stiff Little Fingers, and Joy Division.
Fantastic.
And another band called Stank Finger, possibly the worst named band of all time. They were like ska punk. But I share this space with a poet called Lottie LS. She runs a printing press and a publishing thing from this building as well. And she is the daughter of the guy who wrote this.
Oh, Andrew, what's his face?
Andrew Smith, was it?
Andrew Smith.
You know, we're only talking about
the other day.
2 or 3 episodes ago. You talked about this book, didn't you?
We did. He wrote the cover story of Word about Oasis, because I loved that book so much.
So I share the space with his daughter, and I've met Andrew recently.
Brilliant. It's a brilliant book.
Great book. And he did another one called Totally Wired, which was about the .com bust. And now he's into coding. He doesn't write, because there's no jobs for music journalists anymore.
No,
true. So he now he's writing a book on coding at the moment. So I share the space with her.
That's the beauty of the Moondust book. It can never go out of date, can it, really?
No.
Because he talked to just all the people who'd stamped on the moon.
And it gets more and more wonderful as the years go by, because he talked to, I think, 9 of the surviving people who'd actually walked on the moon.
Yeah.
I think there were only 12.
Well, that's my point. They ain't making any more of them.
No, and they're not going to. So that just has more and more cachet, doesn't it? It's incredible that he wrote it when he did.
Yeah.
Actually, one or two of them died very soon after he talked to them.
Yeah. That's amazing. So do you still weld?
No, I gave that up about 10 years ago. Really.
Right.
It's a young man's game. My eyes started going. It's hard work. It's proper craft, you know.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. So now I live off the art. And just doing the space, really. Yeah.
So you take an interest in Bob Dylan's welding adventures. He's got. I argue with Mark. I always think he doesn't do these things at all. He just has people to do them for him.
Which I think is the same with his art, really. The art is basically prints that he supposedly hand colours, isn't it? But I think it's a load of people cranking this stuff out.
Yes,
he can't be getting up in the morning. Dave's right, and firing up an oxyacetylene. He's going, oh, you want to just join that old hubcap to that old heat booth? Well, I kind of sit here and have breakfast.
I love it when you do your Bob Dylan.
This is only impression.
Even more.
That's all I can do.
So I did see Dylan. I saw him in 1978.
Right.
In Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
That was a great tour.
That was November the 29th, and that was for the Street Legal tour.
That's a really good tour.
Budokan.
Right.
That ended up as being the At Budokan album.
Yeah.
That's probably why people download set lists, so that's people who'd gone to Bob Dylan shows who didn't recognize anything he played and thought, oh, look at it. Yeah. Oh,
when I get home, they're going to ask me what he played, and I don't know, so I'm going to have to mug up, or else I'm going to look ridiculous.
This was like a greatest hits set. I mean, he did a brilliant, and they were more or less note for note versions.
Oh, all right.
Which was really good. So I saw him on November the 29th of that year. And on December the 5th, I saw
Bruce Springsteen. Okay, so then what year? 78.
1978.
Okay.
So
that's top
Darkness
stuff,
on the Edge.
That is.
Yeah, Darkness on the Edge of You. Yeah. In the same venue, a week apart. I can't believe how lucky I was.
No, absolutely.
No, amazing.
But I did see Dylan again. I saw him in 2018-19 at Hyde Park, where he just murdered his back catalogue, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was fantastic. He did the most surreal version of Like a Rolling Stone ever. Incredible. I really did. I loved it. Better than that gig, I think.
So, do you still go to gigs nowadays, or are you you're busy with the art space and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, the last band I went to see was Starcrawler. Do you know anything about them?
No.
LA punk kind of band. Think they're the Stooges. They've got a Arrow de Wilde. Their singer is a 6'3" woman, Amazonian, but the thinnest person I've ever seen.
Oh.
They're like New York.
That's a good stage name, Arrow de Wilde.
Arrow de Wilde. Her mother was a photographer, a rock photographer. She's from that. They're kind of that LA sleaze type rock.
Yeah.
They were okay. Someone tried to sell them to me as they're the future of rock and roll, but they really, they're not. I saw them twice and walked out the second time. I also saw Jeffrey Lewis. Do you know him?
Oh, Jeffrey.
The anti-folk kind, New York anti-folk guy. He draws cartoons.
Right.
He plays an acoustic guitar and that, but he's got a band with him, but he draws cartoons in the middle of his gigs and everything.
That's
interesting.
That's different.
I thought he was going to be a joke artist, but he was pretty good. So that is the last ones. Who else have I seen? FKA Twigs, I saw.
Oh, right. Okay.
Long ago. St. Vincent, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever
so you're
says is fantastic. St. Vincent, everyone says is fantastic.
She's brilliant. She's great. She's like she's a chameleon, isn't she? She started off as sort of avant pop, chambers kind of pop, really.
Yeah.
And morphed into kind of like electronic rock. No, like I say, she's doing a bit of a retro-y thing at the moment.
Yeah.
She's a great live act. She won Live Act of the Year in 2015, and that the eponymous album won the Grammy for best. She's won a Grammy this year. She's I've tried to introduce her to people, and everybody hates.
In fact, we're looking at a picture of her, aren't we? The picture on the right behind you is by you. Yeah.
Everybody I know hates her. They're like, what's the appeal? But I like it. If you like art rock, and if you don't see that as a pejorative term.
No, fair enough.
Not at all.
Fair enough. Well, look, Carl, it's been fantastic. We've
really
packed in a huge amount there. You know how we traditionally finish these things?
Yes.
Which is to ask, because we're on a quest to try and find the greatest record ever made. And we get loads of suggestions. And frankly, they don't come up to standards. But I think you might have the answer.
Okay.
Do you? At his feet.
I do. I'm going right on another week that could be this. Okay.
Oh, what?
Oh my Lord!
Good grief! Gaiety of the Gary
with Gordon.
Who's that by?
This Gordon Edwards, who's Peter J from Peter J and the Jaywalkers.
Oh my God!
Peter J's
father-in-law.
Father-in-law made this recorded before a live audience in 1972. Okay, and it's just incredible. They do a rock and roll medley on here of. So the band that are with him are called the Terry Chaston Five, featuring Norma Wick on vocals.
It's brilliant.
And they do a version of I Want to Be Your Man and These Boots Are Made for Walking.
And this is Peter J's father-in-law.
Recorded live 1972. So when Ziggy Stardust was coming out and people thought, oh, glams, this is what was really happening.
Absolutely.
It says something about audience participation is a feature of the atmosphere created on this LP.
That's
so a bit
fantastic.
like Rocking the Fillmore then.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. But it's not that one. That's your runner-up.
Because Peter J and the Jaywalkers obviously were from Yarmouth, yeah.
Of course, Terry Reid.
And I saw
Terry
Terry
Reid was a singer
with Peter J. And I met Terry Reid about 5 years ago. He played a gig here as a favour for Peter J. And I asked him about the hat he was wearing on the Glastonbury performance.
Oh, right.
That Baker Boy cap.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Sums up 1971. That clip is just not.
That is the coolest looking band there has ever been.
Isn't it?
They're just fabulous.
Alan White was the drummer.
David Lindley on the.
David Lindley. Lol Cream is in the background smoking a joint.
Oh, is he? Yes, he is. And Conrad. No, not Conrad. Isidore. What's he called? The black guy playing bass.
Yeah, black guy playing bass.
Can't remember his name.
But the track he's playing on there is called Dean, isn't it? Yeah, Dean.
It's
about his girlfriend, and she's backstage. You can see her backstage. She's smoking the joint with Lol Cream.
Right.
Well, that's a brilliant clip. But I asked him about that. He said Keith Richards was desperate to buy it off him, and
the hat.
It was the hat, and it was a Africa Core hat.
Oh,
right.
Oh, really?
So now you know where that.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
That's top information. That is.
It is.
Okay, so greatest albums of all time. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it could be another week, another day that would have been this, which is Talk.
Oh, right,
This one's no Laughing Stock, which was
okay.
I love Mark Hollis. Mark Hollis was the absolute perfect.
Comes up so many times on these.
The guy who gave it all up, who just stopped recording, didn't he, for 20 years. He died a couple of years ago. Yeah. Absolutely incredible records. He made the biggest change, because when you were doing smash hits, obviously in the beginning, they were like a smash hits band.
Yeah,
right?
they were. Yeah.
Well, this is like
incredibly uncooperative. You could never get them. Occasionally do a little phoner from a phone box in the Lake District.
Yeah, Lottie's dad was one of the last, but Andrew was one of the last people to interview him.
All right.
Do you know the key? Do you know the key problem with Talk? They were called Talk,
which is a terrible name.
And no, but it was called Talk not long after Duran. And therefore, there was a natural tendency to just bracket them there.
And they went on tour with them. They actually.
There you go.
Yes,
Whereas had they been called Tangerine Dream or whatever, it would have been.
I agree with you.
These records and his solo album. I don't know if you know his solo album. That is absolutely incredible. That is amazing record. So that could have been. This also could have been, because like you, David, now I listen to.
Oh, right. That's Alice Coltrane, is that?
Oh, incredible record. Yes,
right.
It's the gateway drug to Alice Coltrane.
Right.
Journey in Satchidananda, 1971, David.
Right. Oh, yes. You know, I don't know that record, but I will.
Now started to appear in 100 greatest albums of all time. This is one of those records, you know, like you say about records have a life after they've been released.
Yeah.
Because she was considered the Yoko Ono of the jazz world. So,
You know,
she split up the great John Coltrane quartet. McCoy Tyner, and they hated her. The jazz aficionados all hated her. They, you know, she's a woman. She can't do this. She played the harp, you know. So that was like
it's not going to work, is it?
No, everything's against you.
In Sanskrit. She made devotional records after this.
Yes,
where she sings in Sanskrit, and those records are the most beautiful, amongst the most beautiful records ever.
Right.
I love Alice Coltrane. When I went down the St. Vincent rabbit hole, I went down an even deeper one with Alice.
Brilliant. Right. That's really brilliant.
Thoroughly. If you're not familiar with this, David,
I'll look that. I'll look that out.
Incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah.
So
what's the winner?
But the winner is
major drama. What a build-up.
Well, it is obviously this.
Oh, okay, very good.
All right, fine.
Yeah. Wow, that seems quite a conventional choice for.
That was bought for me for my 17th birthday. I've listened to it every year since. I was bought this and Darkness on the Edge of Town at the same day. I got this. My brother got Darkness. And I might have only ever listened to Darkness on the Edge of Town 5 times in my entire life.
Right.
But I've listened to this thousands.
Right.
But the other honourable mention would be Astral Weeks, obviously. Right?
And
Feed and Fleece, possibly, you know. Like you know, it changes every day, doesn't it? No.
It changes every day.
But that is really, this is perfect record, I believe.
That was fantastic. That was really, Carl, it was really entertaining. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
Fantastic.
We covered a lot of stuff.
Start to finish.
I'm glad you did your research.
Loads more to talk about.
No,
we'll come back.
Next birthday. Come back for your next birthday.